Hello, everyone. Anthony here. Uh, each day this week, or as many days as I'm capable of, I'm going to be giving my arguments about why ProgPoW, programmatic proof of work, should not be implemented in Ethereum on the Ethereum network. I think it's included in the next update scheduled for sometime in October. So now may be the last chance I have of getting my thoughts out there and preventing this from happening. I may not be right about everything that I say, so consider this as me just putting my thoughts out there. I'm going to take the position, though, that I'm right until proven otherwise, so feel free to put your counter arguments in the comment section below. So let's start. So the first argument that I have against ProgPoW is that it's a socialist agenda and that socialism is harmful and counterproductive, I guess. A lot of people really hate me calling it socialist and all that, but I've yet to see how it's anything other than that. I'll be using the socialist argument to prove how ASICs and GPUs cannot coexist on the Ethereum network in equal amounts. Or not cannot, but will not. So the definition of socialism that I'm using is the initiation of force to redistribute wealth. The implementation of ProgPoW to Ethereum would force mining hash rate away from ASIC hardware. So it would lower the hash rate of ASIC hardware so that GPUs will be a more viable option to mine with. ProgPoW will nerf the hash rate of ASIC miners. In Ethereum, hash rate is equal to wealth. The more hash rate that you have, the more mining rewards you'll get, the more voting power you'll have when it comes to deciding what protocol upgrades get implemented in Ethereum, and the more power you have in deciding what transactions get included in what blocks and when on the network. So therefore, hash rate is wealth on the Ethereum network. ProgPoW's claimed intent is to make mining more decentralized so that ASICs will not have a monopoly of mining power. That general compute GPUs by NVIDIA and AMD will be able to mine alongside of ASICs just as efficiently as ASICs do. The claimed goal is to have an equal distribution of ASICs and GPUs mining on the Ethereum network. Mining efficiency is how miners choose what hardware they will mine with. They choose the hardware based on the best. They choose their hardware based on the highest hash rate compared to the electrical power consumption that they use. So you want something with a really high hash rate with a really low power consumption. And the more mining power your hardware uses, the more money you're spending on electricity to run them. So if you have so the ideal is you want a really high hash rate and a really low power consumption. But if you have a higher power consumption and a lower hash rate, well, then your profits are going more towards upkeep to keep them running because you're paying more for power. So that eats into the profits that you make. So by crippling the hash rate of ASICs, the incentive for ASIC manufacturers to build hardware actually declines because they'll no longer will we see ASIC manufacturers put effort into building efficient mining hardware because efficiency won't matter anymore. Efficiency is taken out of the game as far as a competitive advantage because everything will be just as efficient as GPUs or as the next guy. And they'll no longer focus on increasing their hash power either because that effort will be futile as well. So what's the point of even trying anymore? Trying to build something better, or what's the point of even trying to compete? And if ProgPoW was implemented, and let's say that ASIC manufacturers find a way to build better ASICs than GPUs with ProgPoW implemented, well, then all their work will be, and probably might be, just wiped down the drain as another ASIC resistant protocol will be proposed and passed in Ethereum. because the implementation of ProgPoW would set this precedent that the community wants equal mining power between hardware. So I'm not sure how likely that is to happen with proof of stake coming up in the future, but I still think proof of stake is years away. So I think that there is quite a chance of that happening, where if ASIC manufacturers find a workaround to make ASICs more efficient with ProgPoW implemented, that there'll just be another update coming again to nerf them again. So because there's no incentive or reason for ASIC manufacturers to continue developing for Ethereum, they'll just focus their resources, their efforts, their ASIC efforts onto other proof-of-work cryptocurrencies. All of their efforts can easily be moved over to Ethereum Classic because Ethereum Classic uses the same Ethash mining algorithm. So there's really no incentive for ASIC manufacturers to continue building not on, but for Ethereum. When ASIC manufacturers give up their efforts for Ethereum, well, then GPUs naturally are the monopoly that take over for selected mining hardware. Therefore, ProgPoW would have failed at any goal of distributing hashing power between different types of hardware. So then another reason GPUs will have an advantage over ASICs is that GPU manufacturers are already very well-established businesses. They're able to supply more GPUs than ASIC manufacturers can supply ASICs due to them being companies, economies of scale, meaning that they have more resources, more access to chip manufacturers. They can ship more product. They have better logistics. They just have decades of being more efficient companies. So they are simply much larger with their resources and greater production capabilities. They're able to support and update hardware faster as well, so they can release software updates, driver updates, and whatever more cost effectively as well, because they have the resources to do so. And they can also offer potential new employees higher wages than ASIC manufacturers. So anyone who has an idea on to work in ASICs or GPU mining, NVIDIA, AMD, whatever, would be able to hire them on because they have more resources. They can pay higher for these employees. And also GPU manufacturers have a better process set up for RMAs and warranty repairs and exchanges and stuff like that, because they're and they can RMA and warranty their hardware more effectively and efficiently than ASIC manufacturers, as they have huge processes dedicated to doing so, which ASIC manufacturers, being relatively new and small businesses, do not have these things set up. So that's an advantage to buy a GPU over an ASIC, is that you have access to NVIDIA or AMD's RMA process, which is all the bugs and kinks of RMA is worked out and everything. All you do, you fill out the RMA form, send them in your GPU, and a couple days later, a week later, whatever, you get a replacement GPU back. I've done it a bunch of times when I had 12 GPUs running years ago. When one went down, I would send it off, and like a week later, so I'd get a new one back. So this is one thing that I thought about while writing this, and I proposed it on Reddit in the past, but I think a better solution would be to support more ASIC manufacturers instead of trying to make everything fair and even for GPUs and ASICs. What you would do, so there's this perceived risk of ASIC companies damaging the Ethereum network because, say, like Bitmain will have a monopoly on the hashing power and have control over all the ASICs and stuff. Well, the solution would be to support another company to develop ASICs as well. So now you have two competing ASIC manufacturers with about the same hash rate or whatever. You can do it as like a charity, or you help the other mining or the other ASIC company grow and be able to compete. So I don't see why this solution isn't to support and distribute ASIC hardware to as many people as possible. So more companies and more ASICs into the hands of more people. Then you create as many ASIC companies as possible, pretty much. And all ASIC companies could have like a pact where they don't release hardware that's X percentage better than their competitors. So say there's like Bitmain and I know Silicon or whatever. Those are the two names that I hear thrown out a lot. But say these two ASIC companies will say that Bitmain is like, oh, we just discovered this breakthrough that now our ASICs will be 1,000 times better than Silicon's ASICs. So we'll just go and do that, and we'll put them out of business. Well, when we look at AMD and NVIDIA, they always release GPUs that are equal or similar in performance. Sometimes one may be a little bit better performance, but another one will be priced more competitively. They're all like similarly performance oriented. They perform similarly, or they're competitive with each other. The same with Intel and AMD CPUs and stuff. I don't know if this is like a written code or something that they have or whatever that they just follow. But yeah, if something like that happens, I see that would probably work out or whatever. So that's just my thoughts. I'm going to try to put more thoughts out on this tomorrow, another video. And I'm also posting this on Reddit too. Not the video, just like the script that I wrote, because they don't like me posting videos, because that's like, I forget the word for it. Promoting myself or something, promoting my YouTube channel. So yeah, that's it, guys. Take care. Thank you, and goodbye.